English newspapers today, Grim Reapers, so grim, it's grim for Amorim, of course, as Manchester United suffered one of their worst defeats in the history of the club.
They missed a good headline.
Battered.
Grim.
Oh, there you go. Beautiful.
That should be a sub-edit.
Oh, you should be something.
Grim.
For more on this, let's welcome in, shall we? Rob and Ian are with us. Ian, I just wanted to start by trying to talk about the magnitude of this defeat for Manchester United. You've been covering football longer than any of us. This is as low as it can get, isn't it, for this club?
Well, I mean, I was thinking, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for Manchester United, it just did. I mean, humiliating, embarrassing. You can use all the words you want to. There's no way, really, that a club like Manchester United, as well as Grimsby played, and they were a credit, and I hope they get promoted from League Two this season, but they are a fourth-tier team. And for large parts of the game, they outplayed Manchester United. I mean, I think the players they had on the pitch were worth about £400 million. It might not have been the first-choice team, but it was still a very expensive team of Premier League stars. So, there's a lot wrong there. It's not a good look either, is it, with Ruben Amorim, hiding away, not watching the penalty shootout, and then some quite strange quotes to him afterwards where he basically seemed to say he didn't really understand what had happened to his team. So, yeah, it doesn't get much worse than this for United. And now they've got Burnley at home, which is another game they just can't afford to lose the way things are.
Rob, you've been covering, of course, Manchester United for a very long time. This is just embarrassing.
Yeah. I mean, Ian is right. In terms of defeats that Man United can suffer, they just shouldn't ever be being beaten by a fourth-tier side in a domestic cup competition, as well as Grimsby played and deserved to win on the night. United should be able to pick any of their 11 players and win that game 99 times out of 100. You've had a graphic there with some of the defeats in cup competitions to lower league opposition. There was a famous one under Louis van Gaal at the start of his reign where they were knocked out by MK Dons. I think they lost 4-0. In recent times, if you ask Man United fans the worst defeat in their memory, that would be up there. But Grimsby, a tier below MK Dons at that point, is far worse. It is embarrassing. There aren't any other words really to describe that performance, that result. Embarrassing, humiliating. You can list them all. It's as bad as it gets.
Yeah, and it's Ruben Amorim, of course, who has been taking a lot of stick, quite rightly, Rob. The memes, we've all seen them, him playing Guess Who, him collecting Pokemon, all with that tactics board, which Craig mentioned yesterday is a complete head-scratcher when you're playing Grimsby, hiding away during the penalty shootout. It's a man who just seems completely out of touch at the moment.
Ruben Amorim has brought lots of this attention on his job, on himself, and Ian's reference there is his post-match interview at Grimsby. Ruben Amorim's come out and sort of said that his players spoke loudly on the pitch and that everyone should understand what he means by that. He was saying that they need to get through the Burnley game, and then the international break after that game will offer a chance to sort things out. He's saying that the club needs a change and that you can't change 22 players. Obviously, the inference is that the only change you can make is the manager. I don't think Man United, the bosses there, the likes of Sir Jim Radcliffe and Omar Barada, were expecting to deal with this so early. There was always a chance, given what happened last season, that they could be faced with these kind of questions in October or November or around Christmas time. If this season did not start well, there was obviously going to be questions about Ruben Amorim's position as manager. But we're not even out of August yet. We've had 3 games and the pressure is incredible on his position now. If they were to lose or to draw against Burnley on Saturday, there will be massive, massive questions about whether Ruben Amorim can carry on in this job.
But who can take over? This just seems like a poison chalice. Players go to Manchester United and forget how to kick a ball.
Well, I mean, who would take over? And that is the golden question, because lots of Man United fans will say, well, we've seen this script before. Since Sir Alex Ferguson retired, they've had David Moyes, they've had Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Erik ten Hag. These are all well-respected coaches who have had success or different kinds of success all over Europe. And then they come to Man United and ultimately fail. So now you've got a situation where the same questions are being asked about Ruben Amorim less than a year after he took over from Erik ten Hag. So there is a little bit of a split in Man United's fan base at the moment. There are Man United fans who say, well, we can't just keep sacking managers. You have to give Amorim time. You have to give him, perhaps you give him the entire season to see what happens. There are others who said, well, it's just not working. It didn't work last season. United finished 15th in the Premier League, their lowest finish for more than 50 years. This season hasn't started well either. You can't just carry on backing a manager with blind faith. At some stage, you have to see some kind of results. And if the results aren't coming, you have to get rid of him now. So, I mean, who they getting in if they were to sack Ruben Amorim is anyone's guess, because they've tried everything. Someone else would obviously take the job because it's still Man United. It's still a desirable job for managers all over the world.
Would it be Southgate, Rob?
Leave.
Obviously, Southgate was cited, wasn't he, 18 months ago? I remember us sat here discussing the possibility of Gareth Southgate taking over from Ten Hag. We know that the board like him. That's a name that I suppose, in theory, has been linked before.
Well, but then I was sat at the PFA Awards in Manchester last week, and Gareth Southgate was on stage collecting an achievement award and was asked the question, will we see you back in the dugout soon? And he said, don't hold your breath. It seems like he's got other projects he wants to work on. I mean, Gareth Southgate would be a name that would be mentioned because, as you've said, the owners like him and have briefed before that he would be one of the names in the frame. Other than that, you're looking at Iraola possibly at Bournemouth. Lots of the managers that they've looked at in the past have all got different jobs. Thomas Frank was one of the front runners when they sacked Erik ten Hag, and obviously now he's at Spurs. So he's another name off the list. They looked at Xavi before after he left Barcelona. So again, he would be a name that would come up. I don't think there's any obvious contender though if they were to sack Ruben Amorim, and that is part of the problem that United have got.
What you can't deny at the moment is when you look at some of the graphics that have floated around with his results and his win percentage. In English football, at the moment, he's out his depth. Now, people will say, well, we did this at Sporting and he was in the Champions League. I don't care. Sporting is not Manchester United. Manchester United brings a different pressure, a different responsibility. And at the moment, he is out his depth. He's out his depth with his press conferences. He's out his depth with his team selection. He's out his depth with his tactics. And again, we talked about it yesterday, this continuation of Ruben Amorim to continue to play the same way time after time after time again is so frustrating because it's not working. And I've touched on this yesterday and I touched on it last week. The best managers that have managed the game have been some of the most flexible. When things need change, they change. When players need moved, they move them. Ruben Amorim is so stubborn with this word system, it is scary. And on the fact that he hasn't got the perfect squad, which he hasn't, but he's got a big squad, he's got an improved squad from last year, with better quality players. Even if it's far from perfect, they're playing Grimsby Town. They were outplayed by Grimsby Town. And whoever pursued Ugarte should be frog-marched out the building. I mean, they chased this player from PSG, who at the time I think wasn't even playing in Paris, and you can see why. And threw a boatload of cash to get him in. And I think it was Shaka that said, what the hell does he do? He can't tackle. He's not big. He can't run. He doesn't break the play up. He can't pass the ball. I mean, seriously.
It's interesting, like Rob mentioned Thomas Frank here.
There are other managers out there.
Thomas Frank's only 2 games into Spurs, yet we've all been very impressed what he's done over such a short period.
Well, it's early days.
Is it a case that no matter who comes in at Manchester United, they're dealing with a squad which is just such a mess? There's no way, no matter who you are, you can't get a tune out.
Yeah, but that argument falls flat in its face when you take a result against Grimsby Town. That's not an anomaly for them. They've had these kind of performances have been scattered against lower half Premier League teams. I mean, we talked about before we came in. Before Brian Mbeumo scored, they should have been 3-0 down. And rightly so, the fourth goal that could have been 4-0 was chopped off for offside, which was a correct call because Harry Maguire wasn't in control. But they were on the floor at that point. I mean, they were getting battered by Grimsby. Everybody wants to give them time if you're a Man United fan, and probably the board do as well, because they don't want the embarrassment of having to sack another manager. If these results continue in this manager, and if the Burnley result goes against them, they have that international window to think about it, and then they have a horrendous run of games, they will have no option. Unless he picks it up and starts getting results, this Man United board will have no option whatsoever but to get rid of him. It's as simple as that.
And the thing is for me, and while maybe you might be right in saying, yeah, no matter who comes in, I'm not sure they could get a tune out of this team. Amorim has been here for a while now.
Yeah.
And while this is his first pre-season, his first summer transfer window, even you look at the starting 11 against Grimsby, well, Ugarte, again, I'm not sure who's willing to step up and take responsibility for that. But Dogu signed when Amorim was manager. And when we came off the bench at halftime, Cesco Cunha started the games. Those were all signings under Ruben Amorim. Now, whether he wants to distance himself from that and say it's the board or the director of football or however they do it now, I'm certain, or I hope, that the manager still has some say in that, given that this is the team he's putting out, and he'd spent his entire time at United, certainly during the course of last season, saying, this is my formation, I need to get my players in to play my formation. Now you have a bunch of them. Okay, I've got a couple of kids in centre halves. One came off, Fredrickson coming off at half time. But so much of this is still your responsibility, or at the very least, under your watch. And you should not be losing to fourth tier Grimsby when so many of this squad have been signed under your watch.
Ian, what do you do if you're in charge of Manchester United?
I think they've got to go and buy a goalkeeper. That's the first thing, because they haven't got a good goalkeeper. You can't have a guy, well, two guys, who are flapping like they're in a fog every time there's a cross. So that's got to happen in the next few days. We hear they're signing this fella from Antwerp, Lamens. I think it is coming in. And they need to buy a midfield player who can have running power, dynamism, because they haven't got anybody. You mentioned Ugarte. Casemiro's too old now. Mainu, for all his quality, he does have quality, but he's not really an energy bunny in the middle of the pitch. So, Spurs picked up somebody like Palhinha, who had become surplus to requirements at Bayern Munich. Looks like a very good signing. That's the kind of thing they need to do. They need to get a number 6 in very, very urgently, and then adapt their system, not be married anymore to this 3-4-2-1, and get Bruno Fernandes, who is a creator and scorer, playing somewhere near the opposition goal. So there's a few things.
Rob, what's going to happen over the next couple of days? As the boys mentioned, they need a goalkeeper. We know that Garnacho looks like he's on his way to Chelsea. Just have a look in your crystal ball, see what's going to happen over the next 72 hours.
Yeah, well, Garnacho to Chelsea is done. They're going to hope that they can get some money out of Real Betis for Anthony. Tyrell Malacia needs a loan move somewhere. They'll be praying that they can somehow get a move for Jadon Sancho, although that's not certain. And Ian is right. They probably need at least 2 players in. They need a goalkeeper, and they need an energetic number 6 who can cover some ground in the middle of the park. The issue for Man United is that neither of those 2 things are guaranteed. There is interest in Lamens at Antwerp, but that deal hasn't been completed yet and is dragging on. They were interested in Belieber at Brighton, but that's been deemed too expensive, so they're going to have to move on. There is a scenario where Ruben Amorim goes into the full season with the squad that he's got, and as Grimsby Town proved so brutally the other night, it's just not good enough. And the danger is that if results don't pick up, as Craig has just said, if the results don't pick up in the next couple of weeks, we'll be having the same conversation in the October international break or the November international break, and at some stage the club are going to have to turn around to Amorim and say, you're not our guy anymore. And then we're back to square one. Who do we find to replace him? And can he turn it around? And the answer so far, with any manager that's come in the last 10 years, has been no.
He did this maybe this is something he does, I don't know. But when Bruno Fernandes took the penalty at Fulham, the controversial penalty that seemed to take
the referee kicked him before.
It seemed to take an age. Ruben Amorim was doing the same thing. He had his head buried between his knees, couldn't even look, didn't want to look at Bruno Fernandes, who's got a pretty good record after all with penalties. He didn't want to look at him taking it, and that sent him. And then we saw the images yesterday, and that sent to me that the pressure is just so much on him that he just can't even bear to pick his head up and see if the goal is scored. And I know Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool sometimes was turning away and blah 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 and wouldn't look at it, but this is a different scenario. This is a manager who is under the cosh and a team that are struggling, and he just oozes that feeling when you see him sat there, head bowed. And players notice that.
Right.
Players pick up on that. When your manager's lacking energy, when your manager's in the doldrums, because players won't go, as everybody's touched on. There's no player getting sacked. Not one of them. There's only one man getting the sack if that happens. And players pick up on that. They pick up on the lack of energy. They pick up on the lack of belief. And they say, hey, he really doesn't, he's not good enough, him. He doesn't know what he's doing. Players will be, even the ones that haven't played well in the dressing room, the ones that are not even, probably the ones that are not playing, they'll be said, clueless. Yeah. That's the conversations that go on, isn't it?
The thing for me is, on the one hand, I don't want to be too critical of him not watching the penalties. Managers do that, players do that. I think where it feels different, certainly, and you drew the comparison with Jurgen Klopp, is we've all said for the last couple of years that this Manchester United team has been screaming out for leadership. More times than not, we've been asking for it from the field. No, I think here's an opportunity for him, whether he looks at the penalties or not, but to just to stand up, to be a presence, to be that leader, to at least give this team some belief. And that and for me, that was an opportunity missed. So while, again, I will defend anybody who does not want to watch a penalty, if that's what you do, this, for me, is just a little bit bigger than that. This is about a team that right now feels directionless, leaderless, and Amorim could have been that person, at least in that occasion.
Breaking news, by the way, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been sacked in Turkey. So there you are, Rob. Ollie back on the wheel. Bish, bash, bosh, all sorted. Thank you very much to Rob, as always. Much appreciated. Be sure to check out the latest edition of the Gab and Jules podcast as they give us their thoughts on what happened at Blundell Park. Of course, Grimsby through, Manchester United humiliated.